Thank you, Kit. Well, it's a big challenge ahead for those of us who are going to engage in the Sigma process. Complex science, complex law. So, well, we just covered some science. Let's get back into some of the law. So, Adam Keats. We're ready to...
Thank you. Okay, so I've got, I know I have my work cut out for me. I'm the last speaker of the conference. You've already heard my voice and you're bored of it. I know that. And worse yet, I'm here to talk about a law review article. Has anyone ever read a law review article? Amazing. Were you bored to tears and you promised never to read another one again in your entire life, and you're now hating yourself that you're sitting here about to hear about one? Well, all right, it's happening. I'm going to do my best to try to make this engaging, and it won't be too long. It's a pretty simple article. Oh, good, thanks. Okay, so this article. Not all water stored underground is groundwater. Aquifer privatization. Oh, it's not up there. I'll wait for it. Aquifer privatization in California's 2014 Groundwater Sustainable Management Act. So basically, aquifer privatization and Sigma. What we did with this article, I vowed I would never write a law review article in my life, and I succeeded at that for 15 years of being a lawyer or so, and 3 years of being in law school. But then this little question kind of popped up, and it gnawed on me and my colleague Chelsea too, and we tried to figure out what was the answer, and we decided we'd write an article posing the question. We don't have an answer to this, but we posed a couple questions. So. First question, local control. We all know Sigma is all about local control, and that's one of the big great things, the heralded things about Sigma is it's giving control to the different aquifers to local water agencies, creating these local GSAs, groundwater sustainability agencies. But what's that mean when you have a system that allows water districts to be privately controlled? They might be ostensibly public agencies, but they might be 100% voting controlled by just the landowners in that district. Some districts are controlled by one landowner, one single landowner. Is that really a public agency? And what's that mean when you're giving power under a statute to control a public resource like a groundwater aquifer to that agency or that district? Now, second question that we thought was a big one that I think is also unanswered. What about water banking? Okay, so when looking into the question of water banking, we started thinking about, okay, what does GSA, what does Sigma say about water banking? Well, number one, it has this interesting provision here. GSAs are empowered to purchase, transfer, deliver, or exchange water, or water rights. Why does a groundwater sustainability agency need to be able to purchase, transfer, deliver, or exchange water or water rights? If it's a regulatory agency designed and purpose is to help regulate and help preserve a resource, why does it have that power? Okay, the next one I understand, GSAs are empowered to control groundwater extractions. That seems to be the real purpose of a GSA in my mind, the ideal purpose. But the other ones are curious. Okay, well, here's one of the problems. Sigma also says nothing in Sigma or in any groundwater management plan adopted according to Sigma determines or alters the surface water rights or groundwater rights. So they can purchase, sell, transfer, they can all do all that with those rights, but they can't alter the rights that exist already. The rights are not mutable. They're immutable. And this gets to a point that Barbara made earlier about that San Fernando case, the San Fernando versus Los Angeles case, Los Angeles versus San Fernando. Banked water is not groundwater. It's stored surface water. So now we know Sigma, can't change any rights. So any banked water that goes into as surface water is going to stay surface water. And we know also that GSAs are empowered to control groundwater extractions. Well, if surface water is in the ground and it's not groundwater, then what power does a GSA have over that surface water? How is a GSA going to manage a basin that's composed of both groundwater and surface water mixed up? And I think Kit made a great point earlier, which I was able to get into my PowerPoint at the last minute, but I don't have any answer to, is what do we do about these in lieu water transfers? Those are great questions also. What are the rights that go along when you do an in lieu transfer? What happens? The rights change, the water's the same, but now you have a different right ascribed to that water. And what is the power of the GSA to manage that water or to manage the extraction of the groundwater bank? One of the things that we suggest in this article is that when you have all these different water rights inside these basins, and you have a GSA that can control one of those water rights, then you have an incentive to convert some of that controllable water to these uncontrollable rights. You have an incentive to convert groundwater to stored water, groundwater to surface water, groundwater or an in lieu transfer, changing the water rights somehow, getting it out of the control of that GSA. If your GSA is somehow an activist GSA that's trying to do the right thing, which is, because half of these things are going to be owned by landowners, by mega farms, it's questionable whether they're going to have that desire or not. So then we get into this next question. Okay, so now let's look at a case study here, and this is what really spurned these questions, is what was happening down in Paso. So this is Paso Robles. It's San Luis Obispo County. This basin right here is obviously a very big basin. Just for reference here, you guys can kind of see it, but this is the Bay Area up there. This basin kind of extends all the way up the Salinas River, and it's just on the other side of this ridge from what? Shafter, Bakersfield, and some other presentation, Current Water Bank right over there, right in that area, and West Side Mutual right over here, and the Western Water District over there. It's geographically close to it, and it turns out there's a lot of overlap between the folks in both those areas. And so what happened the last couple of years is we started seeing a lot of action in the Paso area that was very clearly oriented toward what we perceived to be an effort to create a Kern Water Bank style banking facility that was proven and demonstrated from 1994 on in this area right here, this water bank. So I'm going to pose a couple of questions here. So how do you privatize an aquifer? We set up in this article a kind of a hypothetical here. So one thing you want to do is you need to own the surface land. You need to own the land in order to create a water bank. So all right, if you have an area that's all privately owned, start buying the land, start buying the farmers' land, and make sure that they're on top of a decent area for banking. Okay, so who's behind? This is actually a neat little, I didn't realize I did this little graphic thing with this slide, so I did. There we go. I'm glad it showed. I was like, why is that not showing up? All right, so interestingly enough, who's involved in this in Paso? Who's been buying up a lot of land down there? Well, Paramount Farms, wonderful companies. They bought these two big ranches. Justin Vineyards is a huge wine company. Hardham Ranch is a big piece of property. And very interestingly, Harvard University owns this holding company, Brodia Incorporated. Operates as an arm of their investment fund, their endowment. And they started buying land throughout the area, throughout the basin, but really concentrating a lot of the land right here in this area, the Shandon area. Now this dotted green line is the coastal branch of the State Water Project. So one of the important things, if you're going to have a water bank, you need to be tied into the commerce stream. You can't just have a water bank in the middle of nowhere. That doesn't do any good. You got to be able to put water in and take it out, and not just for the farms that are above the aquifer, but for the farms that are hundreds or multiple hundreds of miles away. And you need to be connected somehow. So that you can look right away and say, oh man, yeah, you got a bunch of land directly underneath the State Water Project here, which means you can buy and sell all the way up and down the state, and you got a bunch of very deep pockets that are starting to buy land. Okay, so let's go with another bunch more hypotheticals here. Step 2, let's say start ginning up a water crisis. Publish studies, create studies saying, hey, this aquifer is in crisis. This aquifer is a medium to high priority basin, or a medium high to high priority basin. Well, that's interesting because Sigma, we know applies to those kind of basins. Let's create, or let's at least accentuate, or at least inform everyone of the problem with this basin. Enact special legislation to enable the formation of the water district. Now we wrote this and we were talking about this before we started engaging this hypothetical before Sigma. Sigma is accomplishing this on a statewide scale in a lot of ways. But people were doing this thing before Sigma on an individual scale also. And then create your water district, and most importantly, control your water district based on the number of acres owned. That's the way most water districts in the state are managed or controlled. And it's, if you're going to be interested in creating a water bank and privatizing your aquifer, you better make sure you don't allow a democratic process to have anything to do with your asset, which is your district area and your aquifer. Set up your aqueduct connection to the state water project. That's your superhighway. That's your commerce stream. It's the most important one in the state. One of the most important streams of commerce or facilitators of commerce in the world. Okay, then set up your water banking operation. And then draw down, this is a really important thing for Sigma, draw down your aquifer's percolated groundwater supplies to create storage space for what? For future water banking. And our case, City of Los Angeles versus City of San Fernando, Supreme Court endorsed that. It's not unreasonable use to draw down an aquifer for the purpose of creating future water storage space. Crazy. Now there's some questions about how strong that opinion is, or what's going to happen in the future with it. But that is absolutely a goal of a lot of these efforts. The project, the Cadiz project in the Mojave Desert, that was a major litigation point when we were fighting that one. This was an effort to privatize an aquifer there. And they said the reason why we're drawing down the aquifer, the reason why we're going to overpump it, the reason why we're overpumping this aquifer and shipping the water to LA, we're going to sell it into Orange County, the reason we're doing it is to create storage space for future storage of Colorado River water, and that is not unreasonable use. Okay, so then you store your out-of-district water in your aquifer, and now what's happened to your aquifer? It's no longer percolated groundwater. It's filled up with this, or filled up some percentage of it's filled up with your bank water, and it's outside of the grasp of your regulations under Sigma. Okay, so what happened in Paso? And so that's the guys basically all said all that stuff. Your rights of groundwater users are subordinated. People that are just have their straw in drinking the regular percolated groundwater, well, they're not allowed to take the water out that's the banked water. The people with the banked water have control of that.